Welcome to Patriot TV. I'm your host, Janet Palumbi. I invite you to join me today as we discuss news and current events, local and worldwide, all from a faith-based perspective. I want to talk about some letters of the alphabet this week. These letters are different than the letters that many people are discussing right now, such as LGBTQ, etc., etc. I want to talk about the letters Y and Z. I was inspired to do this show because of a recent Flashpoint show that I watched that featured several young influencers that are leading the spiritual battle in this country right now. I've always had a special heart for young people. I loved raising my own two millennials, also known as Gen Y generation. With all the negativity in the news right now, I really wanted to focus on a positive show this week that highlights these amazing, brilliant, and godly young people that are championing the cause for truth and righteousness. Charlie Kirk, many of you know who Charlie Kirk is. He's an American conservative activist, radio talk show host, and founder of Turning Point USA, which is a nonprofit organization that advocates for conservative politics on high school, college, and university campuses. Charlie is a millennial from Generation Y. Let's clarify what a millennial is. Gen Y and Gen Z. Gen Zers were born between 1997 and 2012, which would put them at the ages of 11 to 26. Gen Yers, also known as millennials, were born between 1981 and 1996, which would put their ages at 27 to 42. Charlie Kirk has a book called How We Win. I'm reading this book right now. In his book, he says we are facing a defining moment in American history. Whether we like it or not, we are locked in a very serious battle against an extreme opponent whom goes to great lengths to destroy the fabric of our existence. The future of the freest, most precious nation to ever exist is at stake, making this very battle one we cannot afford to lose. The fight to reclaim America is going to be long. This battle will require sacrifice and will gravely test the resolve of millions of American patriots. The choice is yours. Sink and settle for the less dangerous vision for America, or rise up and lead. So, I'm a baby boomer. I was born in 1961. Many in my generation believe in tolerance and acceptance. Many of my Christian friends are comfortable in the woke church and content to just love on everyone as much as possible and wait for the return of Christ. I quote these Dietrich Bonhoeffer words often. Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. Gen Z and Gen Y do not live where the baby boomers and the Gen X's live. These generations are on fire. They are a generation that is tired of the slow drip of liberalism and immorality that is destroying the church and destroying America. I want to highlight just a few of these courageous, godly Gen Z and Gen Yers that are making a huge difference and are following in the footsteps of some of the great leaders in the Bible, like Abraham and Joseph, Moses, Joshua, David, Esther, my favorite, Deborah, Ruth, Miriam, Rahab, and Sarah. We need leaders like these godly leaders in the Bible. These young people, they're following in these footsteps. I'm going to play a clip from Isabel Brown. Let's listen to Isabel Brown, one of our young, godly conservative.
I'm incredibly inspired and encouraged by my generation, Gen Z, on a whole host of issues. I think Americans, particularly from a right of center perspective, have discounted us and said that we are destroying America because a small percentage that is the minority is the loudest, and they're particularly the loudest on platforms like TikTok. But every single day, on college campuses, on TikTok, on Instagram, or my live stream that I host across platforms, I engage with Gen Zers, even on the left, who have had enough with this violent, divisive rhetoric in our country. We're breaking free from the stereotypes that so many people associate Generation Z with, one of which being this craze of changing our gender all the time. And we're seeking truth and genuine dialogue, which is why independent content creators like Will and myself really have gone above and beyond in facilitating this conversation and a change of perspective that our generation isn't exposed to on our college campuses or on our TikTok feeds unless we're willing to be there.
So Isabel Brown is a Gen Z conservative voice with a bachelor's in biomedical sciences from Colorado State University, a master's in biomedical sciences, policy and advocacy from Georgetown. She is a spokesperson for Turning Point USA and host of a Turning Point USA production, speaking regularly on campuses nationwide. I regularly follow Isabel Brown. She's a strong leader and a voice for conservatism that has survived the liberalism of two, not just one, two woke college campuses. She recently released her first documentary with Turning Point USA called The Eye of the Storm, countering the Western media narrative about Jerusalem. These young people are not only godly and courageous, they're highly intelligent. These are young 20 millennials and Gen Xers and Gen Zers. We really need to take a lesson from them. Let's listen to a clip from this next young person, Luke Ball.
You know, we went from the Mr. Rogers president to the Dr. Evil president in just one speech. If this is unity, I would hate to see divisiveness. I want no part of this unity. Let's take a walk through some of the great unifiers in our history. Jesus said in Luke chapter 11 that a kingdom that's divided against itself will lay in ruins. Abraham Lincoln said a house divided against itself cannot stand. And Joe Biden said that if you don't cut out this MAGA malarkey, we're going to send F-35s to the Trump rallies and make these Trump rallies just look like a normal day at LaGuardia. It's just absolutely insane. There is no sort of unity here. There is no sort of non-divisiveness. Joe Biden is the wedge, and his speech last night is the sledgehammer that drove that wedge into the heart of America, and it's just disgusting.
So Luke Ball is the CEO of Mason Burrow Strategies, which is referred to as the gold standard in conservative media. Luke is a Republican strategist and CEO of Right Life Media. He's also a political commentator and Victory News contributor. Prior to founding Right Life Media, he served as a congressional staffer for Matt Gaetz, Congressman Pat Fallon, and Congressman Madison Cawthorn. He also worked as Governor Ron DeSantis' deputy digital director on his successful 2018 general election campaign. He served as a spokesperson for President Trump's Save America rallies and advised multiple congressional and gubernatorial political candidates. Luke's content has received national attention from both sides of the aisle, earning praise from the right and outrage from the left. Luke is a fierce, outspoken, courageous, and godly voice for conservatism. I can't imagine being in my 20s and accomplishing so much. These people have done so much in their short lives. They are somebody that we should really pay attention to and emulate. Carolyn Levitt. Let's listen to a clip from another bright, shining star in the conservative world, Carolyn Levitt.
Well, there aren't a lot of swing districts left in the United States. New Hampshire's 1st district is one of them. Carolyn Levitt is running in that district. Her primary is next week. So this race has gotten incredibly nasty, so nasty that yard signs have been appearing in the district calling her KKK airline. So why are they attacking her like that? Our rule of thumb is, if the attacks get really vicious, if they stray from the issues into things like character, you're a bad person, you're a racist, it's usually because you're a threat in some way. Is Caroline Levitt a threat? We're not sure. We thought we would talk to her tonight. Caroline Levitt, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Tucker. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. So what is this? So it's a congressional district in New Hampshire, right? It's one congressional district out of 435. Mm-hmm. Why is this race so nasty? What's at stake, do you think?
Mm-hmm. Well, I am running in my home seat, New Hampshire's 1st congressional district, and the Democrats are viciously smearing me with the signs that you just talked about because I stand for strong borders and strong law and order. So apparently I'm a racist. I stand against men competing in female athletics. So apparently to them, I'm a transphobic and a homophobic. That's what the Democrats do. They can't stand on policy or solutions, so they attack you with personal smears. But it's not just the Democrats in this race, Tucker, that are attacking me. It's the Republicans, too. In fact, $5 million of dirty, dark super PAC money from the Congressional Leadership Fund, Kevin McCarthy, Defending Main Street, have been attacking me and my family with television ads over the last week. And why is that? Voters in New Hampshire are wise, and they know it's because I'm the greatest threat to the establishment in this race. They laughed at me when I got into this thing last summer, and we are now in a dead heat tie with their hand-picked puppet heading into the primary on Tuesday. I will not back down from the attacks from both the Democrats and the Republicans. I'm fighting for the people of my home state and the conservative values that make this the greatest country in the history of the world: God, family, and country. And that's why we're going to win on Tuesday.
Well, I just got to wonder, is there a huge constituency in New Hampshire for illegal immigration, for dudes on your daughter's swim team in the locker room with your girls? I mean, do a lot of people in New Hampshire want those things?
No, of course they don't. We are the live free or die state. We believe in freedom, I would argue, and I'm biased, of course, more than any other state in this union. And we are currently represented by a far left Democrat named Chris Pappas. He pretends to be a moderate bipartisan voice, but growing up here in the state, I can tell you he's anything but that. And then the establishment Republicans in D.C. are propping up my main primary contender, Matt Mowers, who is a former lobbyist for an opioid manufacturer, a former political operative for Chris Christie, for goodness sake. And they're spending $5 million to attack me, a homegrown conservative voice for our state. But again, the people are smart, and they understand when they're attacking you, that means you're over the target and you're winning. And I have no doubt we are going to win. We do need some help from the people. We need to flood the polls and say no to the swamp. And I appreciate all of the support that's been coming to our campaign.
$5 million to stop you. Wow. You must be saying the right thing. Caroline, great to see you tonight. Thank you so much.
Carolyn Levitt is the former GOP nominee for United States Congress in New Hampshire's 1st congressional district. She's a 25-year-old Gen Zer and would have been the youngest woman elected to Congress if she had won. She was defeated by a narrow margin to Chris Pappas, the first openly gay member of Congress in New Hampshire. Prior to her congressional race, Levitt worked in the White House during the Trump administration as an assistant press secretary. She also served as communications director to Representative Elise Stefanik, Republican of New York. As of April 2023, Carolyn Levitt is joining former President Trump's super PAC, Make America Great Again, Inc., as a national spokesperson. Now, Carolyn lost by a really, really small margin, but did she? We really aren't sure nowadays, are we? Those good old Dominion machines and good old voting, we don't know who really wins in these elections, do we? We're hoping that things get better, and these are some of the people that are really helping to try to make the election system better so that in 2024, we have fair elections again. A lot of states have made a lot of progress, and I don't think we're ever going to have a truly fair election again. But I do think that we can make some progress in some of the states, and that's how we won the Congress. So we can't give up hope there either. This last person that I want to highlight, I just heard about him on Flashpoint the other week. The show that I told you inspired me to do this show. He is my favorite. I'm really impressed with this young man. His name is Aaron Fulcher, and he's from my home state of Tennessee. Let's listen to what he has to say regarding his conservative thoughts.
Hello, this is Aaron Fulcher back at you again. I am doing this again in my car because I can't help it when I drive and I think of really good stuff to talk about. So many of you know that I go to Cumberland University, and it's amazing to me when I talk to different people in campus or around campus about the political divide and what that means for us. The number one thing that the liberals and Democrats go to is race. And I can't believe it. I don't know why they would go to race. It's absolutely astronomical to me. You know, I have a lot of white females at school that call me a white supremacist. And they call me other words too. Uncle Tom, because they're white and they're oppressed, because black people are oppressed, and they know what it's like to live as a black person in the country, even though they've never lived as a black person in the country before. It's absolutely asinine, and it's astronomical to me. I just can't wrap my head around it. But what's even worse than this is our education system. Our education system on the federal level completely needs to be dissolved. The states know what is best for the education of their children. But what's even more concerning of that is higher education. How professors of biology conform to the woke ideology of men can give birth to women, or biological men can become a biological woman. And what we've learned from Matt Walsh with the Daily Wire is the fact that a woman can't even tell you what a woman is. I saw one of the women on there that said, well, only a woman knows what a woman is. It's absolutely ridiculous, but this is the train of thought, and this is the ideology that is becoming precedent now in our country. And what's important for this is I have a lot of people come up to me and they say, well, Aaron, why do you even speak out? You just get hated on. Or why do you encourage other young people to speak out? They're just going to get hated on. It's because if we don't stand up and if we don't stop conforming to the woke ideology, we are not going to recognize the country we live in. This quote is used many times, but when a quote's used many times, it's because it carries significant meaning. When Ronald Reagan said that freedom is only one generation away from extinction. And those words were true then, and they're just as alive and true today. And we have to stand up and we have to defend the rights of our citizens. We have to defend them from the federal level. We have to defend them on the state level. And we have to protect our children. We have to protect our education system. We have to make sure that our education system is actually somewhere what of higher education should be. And this is why we stand up. And this is why we speak out. Because it's very vital and it's very important that we do not allow our country to become something of a third world country, where high global elites control us. We can't say the certain things they don't want to hear, and we can't do the certain things they don't want us to do. This is America. Our founding goes back to colonial heritage of where we stood up against the tyrant monarchy, where we said we want taxation with representation, where we stood on the principles that all men are created equal.
So Aaron Fulcher is a young Gen Zer and a proud conservative that is running for the school board in Zone 5, Wilson County, Tennessee. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think about the school board, I think about people that are much older. And he's been criticized for being so young and tackling this thing that he's trying to do, run for school board. He's a Wilson County native and former Wilson County school student. Aaron says, I have seen decisions made by our school board that I can no longer stay quiet about. I believe in education over indoctrination. Students of all ages can go to school, should be able to go to school, without being subjected to obscene materials or even educators telling them that said material is okay. He currently attends Cumberland University and is majoring in criminal justice. He plans to go to law school to obtain a Juris Doctorate to become a prosecutor. He believes that his background as a student and his current criminal justice and law studies will bring unique insights and perspectives to the school board. Keep an eye on this man. He is running for school board and he needs the votes. This guy knows what's going on in the schools. He recently came out of the school systems and he wants to change it and make a difference. He can't be bought. Aaron's another courageous and godly conservative. I want to read a portion from a book by Mario Murillo called It's Our Turn Now, from the chapter, The Coming Backfire by Youth. Christianity has always been a youth movement. Many of the great American revivals have started on campuses. The Jesus movement was powerful and widespread for one reason. It was young people. When our youth get a hold of the gospel, it will create a holy peer pressure. Satan will see their youthful energy combined with the fire of the Holy Spirit as a lethal combination. Even though our youth generation is in the throes of great deception and looks utterly lost and disinterested in Christ, there's a great spiritual upheaval within them. That upheaval will be seized by Christ. He will draw them to himself in vast numbers. We are about to witness the fulfillment of a prophecy given many centuries ago by the prophet Joel and quoted by Peter on the day of Pentecost. This is from the book of Acts. And it shall come to pass in the last days, says God, that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your young men shall see visions. These words come from an article from firstliberty.org. If you follow recent headlines, it seems religious liberty is being attacked left and right. The news might lead us to believe there's no hope for our first freedom. The FBI is calling Catholics and Christians potential terrorists. Faith-based pregnancy centers are being vandalized and defaced. Churches face discrimination, and pastors are being denied access to public libraries to read Christian books to children. American workers are being fired from their jobs because of their beliefs, and business owners are being bankrupted for operating consistent with their faith. But there are a lot of reasons to be hopeful. Let's consider this from a spiritual perspective. Attacks are on the rise, but could the enemies of freedom be reacting this way because of what God is doing in our nation? When our opponents double down and increase their attacks, it just means that what God is doing through us is working. This should motivate and spur us to continue fighting for what matters most. The enemies of freedom, no religious liberty, is America is on a winning streak. Everywhere we look, God is doing special things. For every attack on religious liberty, we also see people, churches, and religious organizations living out their faith. Look at what took place at Asbury University in Kentucky. The college president calls it a spiritual awakening. Revival is still happening, like the world has never seen. Young people such as the ones I highlighted today are making a huge difference, and the church is waking up. I encourage you to be encouraged. If we're not being attacked, we're not doing something right. God says in the Bible, we're going to be persecuted for our faith. These young people that I highlighted today, they're not afraid of persecution. They're not afraid of big government, big tech, globalists. They're just living out their faith and trying to change the world and save America. Ephesians 6:10-13 says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in this evil day, and having done all to stand." Thank you for joining me today. I welcome you to tune in every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're called to stay busy and occupy until he comes. I'll be here every week to inform, encourage, and ignite, all in the spirit of faith. I'm Janet Palumbi. See you next time on Patriot TV.